Welcome to episode 36 of the Left Behind Game Club. This week, we play Her Story. You can follow the show on Instagram at Left Behind Game Club. You can follow us on Twitter at Left Behind Club. And on Discord. That link is available on our website at leftbehindgame.club. Now, before the show broke down into a full-on courtroom drama, Mike admitted something that he quickly had to go back and restate for the record.
So as I loaded it up, I sat there and I wrote murder ? Can I help ? Which I think reads the wrong way. I think it reads, can I help with murder? But what it should read is, someone was murdered. How can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help you solve this murder?
I feel like you'd be the guy that helps hide the body. Like, you wouldn't be the guy to do the dirty work, but you would hide the body for sure.
Jacob, this is on the record, and I think I have to say, I would categorically not.
You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club.
Welcome to the Left Behind Game Club, our never-ending attempt to make sure that no game is left behind. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I have two friends with me. The two friends you know, the two friends you love. Well, I like them at least. The first one, Michael Ruffolo.
I'm excited to talk about a cool game with my cool friends.
Cool games and cool friends. What could be better? Maybe a cool drink on a hot day? I'm going to ask Mo Murtadi about that. Mo, do you like cool drinks on a cool day?
I do love cold drinks on a cool day, and I also love good games. Let's get talking.
Her Story is the cool game we're going to be talking about today. It came out in 2015. It's available on a ton of platforms: PC, Mac, Android, and OS X. OS 10? That's what you say. What is this video game about, gentlemen?
It is... Mo, you take a crack at it.
It is a game where you are a detective, not like Batman, but more like Jim Gordon. Kind of looking at a murder or looking at a situation where you're watching videos of a young lady who's telling you the events of what happened in a little situation that you'll kind of get deeper and deeper into as the game progresses. Mechanics-wise, you're kind of like clicking on different video clips, watching them, figuring out what's happening next, and using the keywords or the things that the girl is saying to find more and more info, piecing things together, and kind of seeing what the heck is going on. Does that do it justice?
That's a great summary. A couple of things that I would add: it's entirely full motion video or recorded video, and it all takes place within an interface of a computer,
like a 90s OS.
A very 90s computer.
Mm-hmm.
And like Mo said, you search through all these videos and watch it and try and piece together what the story is.
Mm-hmm. And
specifically, Her Story.
Oh, I see what you did there, Mo.
The biggest thing is, like, it's completely different from any interface, any type of game I've ever played. I don't know about you guys. Does it ring any similarities to anything whatsoever?
So I was describing this game to my girlfriend, and she was a huge fan of... She's not a game player at all, but she loves the Nancy Drew games back on the PC. And what I told her when I was explaining it is, I'm like, and the reason we played this game, I chose this game, is because to me, it's an adventure game in the style of a lot of those old PC, point-and-click adventure games, but it's got this cool wrapper around it of, instead of like clicking around an environment, you're going to search this old computer OS through these records and deduce exactly what's going on with the main character and the other characters that are involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of a game that's similar, I know that I've played games with a similar database mechanic where you're piecing things together from tags and keyword searches, but none that come to mind. No specific game that strikes a chord. Mo?
Yeah, what was? It's not coming to me right away. A game that we played, the Russian, like figuring out people that pass through the border. What was that game called?
Papers, Please.
Yeah, Papers, Please. There's no video in that game, but in terms of like connecting dots, making sure what's going on, that's the only thing that I'm thinking about now that may be kind of similar. So if you've played Papers, Please, kinda, but not really whatsoever. That's the one thing that kind of comes quickly to mind in terms of what it's like.
I'm a fan of the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney games for the DS and the 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
And although it is different because in those games you have to look through a crime scene, like it's split a few different ways. So it's like, hey, look through these crime scenes, but then also you're going to be in a court where you're defending your client, defending yourself, trying to prosecute others. Like there's a smidge of that. That to me is the closest thing that I could think of to this game. It is like really unique. I don't think I've played a game like this one before.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys play it on Steam? Or I know I played it on Steam. Got it, I think, on sale. Or to be honest, I think this might have been a Humble Bundle pickup from like months ago. And Jacob, you're the one that suggested it. And luckily enough, I think I had it. How did you guys play?
I have owned this game for a very long time. I either got it as part of a Humble Bundle, like you mentioned, Mo, or I purchased it when it was deeply discounted on sale. And I'd heard a lot of good things about it. I had heard, I believe, in Game of the Year discussions. And so it was a no-brainer for me to pick up. I had just never gotten around to playing it until about 2 hours ago.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat. So I think I got it in a Humble Bundle, and I've had it for years. And I've always wanted to play it. Well, not years, like maybe 2 or 3 years, almost like probably a year after it came out, because it was given tons of different Game of the Year awards from a narrative perspective because it was so unique. Sam Barlow and the team that put the game together, the very small team that put the game together. Mm-hmm. By small team, I think it's mostly him and then the actor that would be involved in this. But yeah, unique as heck for sure. Mo?
Yeah, it completely missed me in terms of like the marketing or like the knowing about anything about it. If you guys didn't mention it at all when we started the podcast, it would have just sat there in my Steam library and I probably would never have installed it, just like the hundreds of other games that are on there. Now, did you guys actually want to like play the game, or was it going to be one of those games that are kind of buried in your Steam library?
So it's definitely a game that I wanted to play. But in terms of when I look at my Steam library with hundreds of games, it was not one of the top 10 that stuck out to me as one that I wanted to play. But that's going back to your point, Mo, about how the marketing of this game probably missed you, I think there are a couple of reasons. One, it's clearly a small game with a limited budget, and I can't imagine they had a TV campaign wrapped around this one.
For sure.
And then the second is, I know from a digital marketing perspective, your consumer profile has guns written all over it. And because there are no guns in this game, spoilers, I doubt that any of the ads would have been targeted towards you.
Yeah, and I don't know, not even just that, but yeah, you definitely have a point. Like I definitely go towards those high action games, the RPGs, but and the big brands. But I think it was just small enough where maybe it missed the general gamer, I guess. But like you guys said, apparently it's won several awards for what it was and how it was developed.
Mm-hmm. And see, I love like short experiences, and I think I've said this on the podcast before. Like, if you give me a game that's like 2 to 4 hours, if I can play it in like 1 or 2 sittings over a weekend, and I don't have to like stress and play it like 16 hours over a weekend, like that is an experience that I love. Like, I come to it, I take what I want from it, and then I just move on. And this is an experience that, like, although like small, contained, like, I'll just start and say like it was good. I enjoyed it. I'm going to take a little bit away from it, but it doesn't have to be any more than that. Mm-hmm. Like that's what the game will be for me. And I think I played it and wanted to play it because of the pedigree of Sam Barlow. So he comes at this having developed a few other games and written a few different games, but the big one that made me want to explore this game is his involvement as a lead writer and designer on Silent Hill Shattered Dimension, which is a PlayStation 2 and Wii title, which is a reimagining of the first Silent Hill game. And let me just like skip all the pleasantries. Like, that's a damn good video game.
Okay.
And you don't even like, it's a horror game, but it's more psychological horror than like actual just like
favorite
boogeyman.
My favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I love psychological horror. I hate when things jump out at me.
Did you play Until Dawn?
I have not.
Okay. It shares a lot with Until Dawn. Not in the way that it plays, but that same psychological level, it shares a lot with that game.
Cool.
But let's get back to her story. Who wants to start and talk about this video game? I think before we do that, though, I want to say, if you have not played Her Story and you are at any point interested in this game, do not listen to this podcast first. Play the game, then come back to it, because we're going to spoil 80% of the enjoyment in this game.
It's impossible to talk about this game without spoiling it.
Mm-hmm.
The game, like talking about the game, is spoiling it.
Yeah, 100%. So if you want to play it, hit pause, play the game. 2 hours later, come back to this.
Great advice.
Thank you, Mike.
I think Mike would be the best one to kind of explain from the beginning what you do and how does this game kind of start.
Why don't we start with the first note in your notebook, which is murder ? I can see it right here in front of me.
The very first note. So I had a notebook open as I played because one of our great Discord members mentioned that, you know, when you play this game, you should definitely keep a notebook. You should definitely keep notes of what's happening. So as I loaded it up, I sat there and I wrote, okay, watch the first video because it prompts you with, I think, 4 right off the get-go. And murder is the very first word that's typed into your keybox search. And I watched the first video, the one on the very left, and my note reads, murder ? Can I help ? Which I think reads the wrong way. I think it reads, can I help with murder? But what it should read is, someone was murdered? How can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help you solve this murder?
I feel like you'd be the guy that helps hide the body. Like, you wouldn't be the guy to do the dirty work, but you would hide the body for sure.
Jacob, this is on the record, and I think I have to say, I would categorically not.
And if this was a lie detector, would you say
I'd
you've
say
murdered someone before or not?
The only thing that I would get wrong is my name.
Nice. Put a pin in that and get back to your point.
Which is something we'll get to. So the concept, or the plot, I guess, of this is a series of interviews with, I guess, the main protagonist, the maybe anti-hero, that you come to find out she's being interviewed by the police. And in these series of interviews, you learn more and more about what happened. And essentially, you start out by learning, one, that this woman's husband, Simon Smith, was murdered, and he's disappeared.
Where'd Simon Smith go?
You don't know.
Mm-hmm. And her name is Hannah.
Well,
wait. Is her name Hannah? Or is her name Eve?
It's a great question,
Whoa.
Mo. It's a great question.
And that's kind of like the pivotal part, is that you're interviewing this person, and not to kind of jump a little too far ahead, but as you kind of go through and learn about them, there's different names that get popped up. She keeps referring to herself as 2 separate people, or it kind of pushes you towards maybe thinking maybe there is 2 separate people. Where did you guys kind of land on that?
So there was a point, I guess I would say halfway through, where she starts talking about we. And I think it's when you get to start unlocking as in, there's nothing that's gated from you from the get-go, but just the natural way that I imagine someone would progress through their searches, keywords, names, things like that were brought up in the early videos. I think I got to the last section, and she starts mentioning we did this, we did that. And I sat back and I thought, okay, maybe she has multiple personalities. Maybe there are more people inside that head than one might expect. And maybe that's why all of these things have happened and why she could pass the lie detector test and, blah, 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 blah. And then you come to find out we actually represents this woman, or these 2 women, Hannah and Eve, which, it's funny enough, I think there's a little joy here in knowing that they're both palindromes. And Hannah and Eve were separated at birth. They were twins. And Florence, the midwife who helped with the birth of Hannah, said that the other twin, was dead at birth, and she swept her away. But in fact, the baby who was said to be dead, who was swept across the street and raised by the midwife, Florence, she was Eve. And at some point, the 2 girls meet up, understand that they're twins, and start living half a life each, where they would switch out. And you come to find out that they just switched out for everything. They lived half a life, both with romantic partners, with their experience with their parents in school, every aspect. And I guess one of the things that does is it opens up the question as to who did murder Simon, because Simon's clearly gone and killed.
The thing that kind of got me is, I think all of us at the same time had a little bit of prejudice when we first started the game, thinking, oh, she's genuine, she's talking about the story, very believable acting, like something's wrong. She's trying to figure it out. Whenever like the video would start, where kind of maybe you think the interviewer asked a direct question, like, "Did you do this?" She always hits it with shock. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean? And there's always justification back and forth. And it's not till really the end when you start kind of thinking about previous clips that you've heard, and you go, is she telling the right like story? Is what she's saying actually happening? And the reason why I say that is because, Mike, you mentioned that there was a baby at childbirth that died at childbirth, but Hannah or Eve is the one telling you this. Was that made up? Is it a true story? It's all coming from one source. You never hear
unreliable narrator.
Yeah, you never hear another person narrating any part of the story. You just hear answers to questions, and she's adding this stuff to you, and you kind of believe it at first until, like you said, maybe halfway, but I'd say almost near the end-ish, you're kind of like still not sure what's going on.
Now, can I play the devil's advocate here?
Please. I'm seeing the horns spurt.
Sorry?
I'm seeing the horns spurt up.
Here they come. Here are my horns. Can we completely disprove that Hannah and Eve are two separate people? The one point where I looked at Eve, and we've kind of mentioned this before, two people, Eve had a tattoo on her left arm, and it was of an apple with a snake wrapped around it. A very biblical reference tied to Adam and Eve.
Do you know how upset I was that I didn't piece together that her name was Eve and there was a tattoo with an apple and a snake?
You didn't?
I didn't piece that together until she says, "Oh, and my name's Eve." I'm like, "Of course it's Eve. Of course it's Eve. There's the tattoo. Mm-hmm. It's a statement of your individuality. Of course your name's Eve." And it's a palindrome. Come on.
Now I'm talking straight logistics here.
Yes.
So straight logistics, we only see that tattoo once, correctly, or twice in two different outfits. When she plays a guitar, I believe, we see her in a blouse where we see kind of that arm, and on the arm at that point there was not a tattoo. But then you go later and she's wearing a blouse that you can see the arm and there's a tattoo, which to me, and maybe it was just because of the way it was filmed or shot or whatever, it looked like a fresh tattoo. So, like, I want to play devil's advocate in here and say, like, could she have multiple personalities and not be two separate people? I am 85% sure she's two separate people, but there's another part of me that's like, what if she has multiple personalities? Mo's shaking his head real bad.
I'm on team one person and multiple personalities.
Whoa.
Like 100%, and like this, I don't want to sound like I'm being very ignorant with like mental health and mental disorders. I don't know. I can't diagnose anything, but just from like face value, being the person playing this game and watching this game, it was definitely one person. The person in the video is the one who committed the crime, and I think in Canada you have to have the actus reus and the mens reus in terms of putting someone in jail. The actus reus, someone was murdered, and the person in the video is the one that did it. The mens reus is something we maybe can't determine because she kind of seems like she's not all there.
Do you want to translate the Latin for us, Mo?
I believe the actus reus is the act of committing the crime. The mens reus is the mental.
Yeah.
And the mental. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's from my point of view. Like, who was it? Was it Eve? Was it Hannah? It was both. Put them all in jail. Guess what? You only need one cell because it's one person.
So here's the reason why I think I don't think I can. I was not building the case here as I was playing the game for why this had to be one or two people. But one of the things that didn't quite make sense to me was, from the perspective of it being one person, is why she would suddenly throw the other identity under the bus if it was one person. Because Mo's losing his mind right now. You're just going to have to hold on for a second. I imagine that there's some awareness that there are multiple identities within this one person. And I imagine that they would understand if one of those identities is locked up, both personalities are locked up. It just, maybe that's looking at it too rationally. And again, like I'm also in Mo's camp of, I do not have the language to talk about, mental health in this respect perfectly, but I think that comes across and seems very logical.
Mo?
Okay. Please do not laugh and stop me. Let me take you along what came to my mind.
Take me to Crazy Town, Mo.
I think it completely is relatable. So, Mike, it is literally Smeagol and Gollum. So, in The Lord of the Rings, the little gremlin creature, Smeagol and Gollum, there's a specific scene when they're confronting Smeagol and they're saying, why did you do this? And he's like, I wouldn't do that. Smeagol wouldn't hurt to fly. All nice and calm and helpful.
Smeagol would not hurt to fly.
Jacob,
is Andy
exactly.
Serkis in the room with us? Come on.
Do you know why? It's to push the blame on the other person. So what she's kind of pitching is, hey, it was my imaginary friend, but my imaginary friend in jail. Let me carry on my life. And to be honest, from her point of view, she may be completely genuine, and that's exactly what happened in her mind, and can't understand why everyone's arguing about this and is upset with her. But in the world that we commonly accept, she murdered a person. She needs to either get help or put away or whatever the situation may be. I don't think it's a question of who did it. Was it Eve? Was it Hannah? This is more of along lines of something happened. What did happen? In the end, you kind of see, yeah, okay, there was a murder. There wasn't a random other person. The personalities come out and the story gets put together in that way.
So one of the things that now that I'm thinking about this a little bit more, I think I have something that can help definitively say it's not one person and that there are two.
All right.
And what I would point to is in one of the earlier interviews, she says, I was in Glasgow. Not only is there a record of my accident, but there's also a record of me at the hospital. And I imagine, because we know the murder happened when there's a record of her being in Glasgow, she was using that as her alibi. And I think that's pretty definitive proof. Mm-hmm. I imagine these cops would have clearly checked up on that, and if that alibi didn't hold, arrest. And I think the thing that we're supposed to take away from that of, it couldn't have possibly been me. I was in Glasgow, and I got into this accident. I paid for this cab, and I was in the hospital, and there are records of all of that. And the average person gets away with it because they have an alibi. Mm-hmm. But this person who's a twin, has an identical twin, can both commit the murder and be somewhere else with an alibi because they are, in fact, two separate people. I think the devil is about to rebut that point.
I actually would like to join the prosecution and say that the devil is in the details.
Okay.
And this game has, to me, 4 different points where I join you and say, I fully believe that there are 2 separate people.
Okay.
I'll start with the first, which is the coffee and tea point, which you brought up earlier.
Oh, that's a very good... So while I was finishing the game in front of Jacob...
which was a very enjoyable way to enjoy her story, is to watch Mike without seeing the screen just go, oh yeah.
Jacob was pretty giddy with my reactions. One of the things that I got very annoyed with is how often the way that Hannah/Eve enjoys her coffee. And I was like, why is this brought up so much? Why are there so many of these? And Jacob brings up a very good point, which is that on multiple occasions, she says she likes her coffee/tea in different ways, and that's how she prefers it. And it would be a very strange thing to draw specific attention to and make videos about if it wasn't a clue that we're supposed to key into. Was that where you're going, Jacob?
You read my mind, almost like we're 2 parts of the same prosecution.
I'm happy to co-prosecute with you.
The second point is her singing ability. So Eve, who is the, would you say the darker of the 2 personalities or people?
Yes, it's the dark Simpson who had to live in the attic. So
she, to make rent, because she said that she had no identity. So that's one of the things where she said, I live as a shadow, as a reflection floating through this existence. And how she makes money is she said that I started picking up gigs at a bar singing. So she would wear a wig and she would just perform. And what she did one of the times in one of the tapes, if you read it, and there's an achievement tied to it, is if you watch her sing about drowning her sister.
Wait, there's video of her singing?
There is video where she has a guitar.
Okay. That explains so much, because I don't know I think you probably clued in, because at one point I just threw my hands up. I'm like, where the hell does this guitar come from? Mm-hmm. I'm like, why is there a guitar here?
Yep. So she sings at one point. I think I was basically, the way I was brute forcing the game to start is I was like, I'm going to go through all the ways that you could murder someone. And that's how I'm going to try to get to the end of this game. So I think I started with like defenestration. I started with like, I went to the big words first.
Whoa.
Defenestration. I went to stabbing.
What does that mean?
Defenestration?
Yes.
It's to push someone out a window in defense.
Defenestration, like fenestra, like window?
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly. It's a word. I think I got it from Word of the Day
I believe
calendar.
you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I went to like poison, which like gave you a great thread about like how the father like death caps and was like interested in mushrooms, and how that's how their parents died. I believe is because they ate the wrong mushrooms. But I ended up on drowning, and then because I was searching on drowning like direct terms. In that song, she talks about drowning his sister, hypothetically. And
yes.
I listened to the whole song, and I was like, okay, I think this is something that only Eve could do.
Yeah, so that's kind of something we should even touch up on. Because so Jacob, you kind of like were searching all ways to kill someone and trying to navigate this. The way I played it, because it gives you the opportunity to kind of put notes that will be referenced if you do click on the search bar. So when you first start up the game, it has murder in the search bar. So obviously, you click enter, you get some videos that have that. I watched every video until like the end of whatever that keyword generated. So if it generated 4 videos, I'd watch all of them. And in the last video, I'd wait for that unique situation or phrase. Like Glasgow is a big one. There was like I think I searched Cavalier because she mentioned something about like they both had a Cavalier. Not everything got me an actual search result, but I always followed that method to kind of follow along the story. What was the new thing they brought up? They started talking about parent, especially names.
Names.
If they ever mentioned, if they mentioned a new name, that's the next search bar I'd hit, and I'd get another series of like 5 or 6.
I had a mental
different clips.
corkboard with names strewn all around it with red yarn tying them together. And that's how I piece things together. Every time there's a new name, I wrote it down and I did a search for it and I watched videos related to it. And it's like, oh, I found out Diane has 2 children and Diane's married to Eric, and Eric is like an uncle to Simon, and it's his boss, and he bought him he gave him a watch, which was the 1-year anniversary watch from Diane, because Diane has great taste. And I just started building these web of connections and ties and details about these people to flesh them out into something that created a more cohesive whole and a story that you were able to follow, a narrative that fit.
The cool part too is like there's also a bunch of like there's a lot of paths. When you start searching for one word, you'll get a connection of a series of like videos that connect to one thing. But there's some that kind of sent you really, I don't know, like the one of the biggest things that I caught was the Diane one. Diane eventually led me to Diana, Princess Diana, and then to Princess, and then they started talking about fairy tales and Rapunzel. I searched Rapunzel this one time, and then you think about Rapunzel locked away. That's I think how I got to the attic thing too, because in one of the videos they mentioned locked in an attic. And how she was raised locked in an attic. So that's a really cool thing about the game is like once again, there's not really the only mechanic is a search bar and click play on a video, but it takes you along a really unique path. And I don't think either of us played it one linear way, but we got to the end destination at approximately the same time, but in a different way, piecing together a unique story. I think that's the gold part of this game.
Yeah, and to go off what you were saying, what I really appreciated is that you would see a thread, just like you would on a garment in real life, and then you'd start to pull out that thread, and you'd say, okay, so the Rapunzel thread, for example, that was one of my favorite threads to pull on, because I'm like, there's a lot of symbolism going on between Rapunzel and being stuck in like
an attic
way up high, and then there's the story about how at one point she cuts her hair, and I forget if it was Hannah or Eve. I think it was Eve. She tied it back to I had to do everything that my sister did. So if my sister got a haircut, I'd use whatever I could to be able to cut my hair, even a butter knife. If she got punched in the face, she hit a door, I'd have to hit myself.
There's a great story about being punched in the face.
Why don't you tell the punch in the face story?
Well, one of the 2 sisters was a little bit more promiscuous and had slept with a girl's boyfriend. And that girl came up to the other sister the next day, clocked her across the face, and left a black eye. And so the way that she dealt with it, because they had to match if they wanted to live their parallel half-lives, was to give the other sister a black eye. And she said she leaned into it and enjoyed it a little bit too much.
Didn't she say she couldn't see out of her eye for days
she couldn't
after
see
that?
Exactly. She couldn't see out of that eye for days, which I think was a great detail and helped for me, at least, the believability that it was two people.
Yeah. Mo?
Humor me for 1 second. So the sister, quotation, slept with the guy, but the one that didn't sleep with the guy got punched in the face. It was the same person. The person whose boyfriend got slept with punched the person that slept with her boyfriend. That can be a situation, the most likely situation.
Are you trying to use Occam's razor here?
Look, another one. The same thing with the drowning. So she says that she wanted to drown her sister. I'm sure she thought about it. I'm sure she tried. She probably went underwater and struggled with herself. That's also another situation. Come on, guys. There's flags everywhere. We can't just be like, oh, there's definitely another person. Now, I can't definitively say there's not another person because at the same time, we're listening to one point of view. But just like, should I do the spaghetti monster, the flying spaghetti monster? I can't disprove that either. Like, we're at the same place, but which is more likely? That's at the end of the day what we have to do.
I get it. You're using an Occam's razor. You're trying to cut down on the assumptions and get down to the most simple answer. Jacob, I feel like you were, halfway through your prosecution as to why it was two people and not one?
Mm-hmm. So I think I went with coffee, tea, the singing ability, the lie detector test.
Yes,
I believe was my third point that I needed to bring up.
Yep.
And to me, that was one of the coolest things that I stumbled upon, because I saw the lie detector, and I want to know if you guys found it, and if you did, how did you see because basically the way the game works is it will transcribe everything that's said. So if you search on something like, hey, coffee, anytime coffee comes up, you'll get a video where she ordered coffee. But in the case of a lie detector test, a lot of the answers to the questions are a certain way. So I want to know how you've discovered lie detectors, if you did, and how you found the answers to that.
So I did not find all of the individual questions in the lie detector. I found the end of the lie detector test because I thought, hey, you know what would be a good thing to search for? The word lie. And I searched for lie, and I found the lie detector video where she essentially says, I got everything right except my name. Wow, this test must be true. And I thought, okay, that's super weird. Why would she get her name wrong? Why would her name not work? And that, for me, raised some red flags, especially early on. But I did not find all the individual questions. How did you find them?
So the way that I brute forced the lie detector test is by searching the words yes and no. Because that is how someone would answer. They'd answer yep or yes or no. In this case, it was a lot of no. There was no. I thought there'd be like an affirmative, but she was not lying. So yes and no. But that's how I found it. And you don't learn that much from it. But I think what you just said is the big reveal of like, oh, the only thing that I missed is my name. Isn't that funny? Polygraphs are dumb.
Response.
And at the same time, like, I can't believe I'm even going to say this because it feels so dumb, but lie detectors are not 100% right, and if someone is not all there, they can definitely lie and it come up to be true. They can be true and definitely come up to be lie. This is called insanity. You believe exactly what you're saying, and if it connects to your body, checks your heart rate, I can look at you straight in the face, and if I genuinely believed it and I was not on my state of mind, I could say my name is Jacob McCourt. I am right here in southern Louisiana, and if I genuinely believe it, it'll come up as true. It's not it's not a truth detector. It's a detection of whether or not you're nervous or like setting off any normal twitches that maybe you are lying. So the same thing happens. It could be that she just is two separate people in her head, and while taking the test, she was a different person. It's not that hard to kind of put together. I feel like I'm yelling.
You're a true lawyer.
I hear where you're coming from, Mo.
Please, Your Honor.
I hear where you're coming from. Lie detector doesn't actually detect lies. It just detects stress, which people normally have a stressful response to lying. But if there were two identities within this person, one might be stressed about it and the other wouldn't. I can buy that.
Yes.
Jacob, that's 3 of 4 arguments you had. What's the fourth?
The fourth that I can bring up very succinctly is a bruise on Hannah's face.
Yes.
So you were affirmative with me here. What happened there?
So I don't know if I have the full story, but I know that the actress very frequently looks to the right, so you can see the bruise on her left eye / cheek. What does happen there? Mo, do you know?
I don't want to sound extremely ignorant. I'll put in that caveat again. I do not understand mental health like a professional probably will, but there is something called self-harm. And maybe Hannah and Eve were arguing with each other in their own head, and one got upset with the other and punched themselves.
Like a Smeagol and Gollum situation is what you're saying?
Literally. Like, this is...
Okay.
I know that's a movie and everything. We're not... And the thing is, this game...
And
the craziest...
fantasy characters.
Yeah, okay. Let me...
In a world that doesn't exist, but that, I tell you, is more likely to be true.
You know what? This is actually a great time to kind of bring this up. How cool was this game bringing up like this situation? No. Genuinely, the whole concept of us questioning whether or not there's one or two people,
absolutely,
or where this story is going. The intensity we're having right now about who is it, what happened. That's all really a listener or someone that's willing to play the game needs to hear, because that'll sell them to play the actual game, or maybe if they play the other game, they'll probably have the same passionate responses as all of us. It's pretty cool.
I'm mentally flipping through some of the videos that I watched, and Jacob, tell me if this is what your explanation is for that bruise. I remember there being some video clip where they discuss how they got into a fight, specifically about, I think, the baby. And
because there was a baby.
Because there was a baby. One goes off the handle, I think ends up hitting her, and he storms out. Is that your take on it?
I think the detail that I want to bring up is actually related to between videos. So I think there's date stamps on all the videos that say, I think they start, and you have it written down here, I think June 27th is what you have written for the first date.
I think the earliest is June 25th.
June 25th. But essentially it goes about a month's time, right?
And I think the last one is July 3rd. Yes.
So like 3 weeks is kind of... No, less time. It's about 2 weeks.
It's, week and a half.
But for me, a bruise like takes longer than that much to go away. But the big point for me was, one day Hannah had the bruise, I believe, when she had the orange outfit on. And then you go forward a few days, and I believe Eve... they make a comment about, like, where's your bruise? And she touches the other side of her face.
Ah, that's a very good point.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
Mo, do you have a response?
Is that supposed to be used as an argument for two separate people?
Yes, it is.
Yes, that's precisely.
A crazy person has no idea where they got hit.
But I don't think crazy people, as you call them, have the ability to magically heal a black eye.
Have you heard of foundation?
Yeah, but
I rest my case, Your Honor. Put her in jail. Put her in jail.
was looking like, Mo, I don't think you addressed the core and I think most compelling argument as to why it's two people and not one, which is the alibi. The argument number one that we make at the very beginning, the alibi that Hannah / Eve has, being in Glasgow with the baby, with a witness, and being in an accident at the hospital. And
she calls him a bluff, or she calls it out and say, like, call me on my bluff.
Yes.
Go talk to the hospital. I'm sure there'll be a record there. You know, the accident was very minor, but I was pregnant, so I went to the hospital, so there'll surely be a record there.
Exactly. Also a little convenient. Convenient.
Isn't it?
Just a little. Mo, response?
I have a... This is kind of where... I may need you guys' help. So,
I don't think that's how court works, but we'll try.
Oh, no. This is because this is so. When I played this game, when I got to, I think I put like an hour and something into it. There's a section. Okay, so first of all, in the mechanics, you're able to save videos that you can watch in sequence below the actual search bar. You guys know of that concept?
Yes.
There's this section where you can a settings button where you can click to delete like your videos, so you can like put new ones in. Have either of you touched that button before?
Yeah, I totally did, and I want to see.
And what did it do, Jacob?
It deletes your whole game file. Bye-bye game save.
Listen, okay, so that's exactly what happened. And it's right in the regular gameplay of the game, and that's when you guys probably saw my comment. That was just me built up and saying, what the heck just happened? It killed... And the thing about the game is once you watch a video, like a check mark kind of switches off and says you've already watched this. So whenever you do a new search, you're able to watch new videos because you'll see the little check bar on them. Oh, you haven't watched this yet. So that resets everything. At that point, my thought process of this game was, I hate it. Worst game ever. Why would they do something like that? Story sucks. I don't understand what's going on. So I hit up a YouTube video to kind of figure out what was going on up to then, because I was completely confused. It pieced together a few parts. I went back, started searching some videos like to kind of figure out the story I kind of left off on, and it was at that point where I kind of got left off. Now, sorry to ramble, but the whole Glasgow being over there, was there ever verification besides Hannah or Eve saying, I was in Glasgow, go check it? Did anyone ever say, hey, yeah, you were there. Hey, you know what? You're right. You're dismissed. No, they find evidence to put her in prison because they probably did check everything, or even if they didn't, there's no way of saying, yeah, she was in Glasgow just because she said it. Wow. Whoop-de-doo.
So I didn't find any verification or any evidence that supported that she was in Glasgow.
Can I throw one more thing with you saying that?
Yes.
So at this point of the stage of the police officers interviewing, watching the videos, recording all of this, they've probably got a good sense of what's happening in front of them. There's no other person. There's no Glasgow. They don't need to verify anything. We have this person right in front of us that's obviously not in the right state of mind, that needs help, and we can wrap this up soon. And she starts getting frustrated and walks out and says, I'm out of here. I want to see my lawyer. That's kind of what happened. I don't see that whole Glasgow thing as an argument for saying, yeah, she was there because she said that. That's my counter. I'm trying to keep it as genuine as possible.
Yeah. So I want to address 2 points. So the first point, what you said about deleting your game data. So that is the one thing in the game that I really wish would have been more clear, because about an hour after playing, much like you, I'd filled up my save game, like my saved videos, and I'm like, oh dang, some of these I don't really need, I don't care about, so I actually just want to clear this tray of videos. So what I did is I went into the settings, and there's 2 settings or 3 settings. It's like, do you want to do like an anti-glare, because the default look of the game,
which is fantastic,
which is the best way to play it.
Oh, I didn't even do that. Yeah.
And then the other option is delete your save data. I think I don't know exactly what it said.
It was worded as if like you're deleting your reel, like you're just your reel underneath or whatever, but it ends up deleting your entire save data and starts you from fresh.
What is really the problem with having deleted it all? That you load up videos again and you're not sure that you've seen them or not?
It's just the fact that, you're going to have to click on, because you can't figure out, I've seen this video just by the thumbnail. There's, I think, hundreds of videos that you have to...
271 videos total.
So you can like search where you kind of left off, but at the same time, you're going to click on 4 or 5 videos that you've already seen. It got frustrating. I maybe spent another, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and I just said, you know what, let me just consume as much outside content, see as much point of views as possible, because I got a sense of what was going on. I just needed to know the ending at this point.
Yeah.
Because I got to that.
And without going here right away, but in this game, there is not a quote-unquote true ending. There is a credit sequence that is achieved via a certain path in the game that we can talk about later. But to me, the experience that you get out of this game is personal. It's like reading a book. It's like you get what you want out of this thing, and then you walk away and you either move on or you talk about it with your friends in a podcast form. Right?
Yeah.
So to me, I was like, I would have liked to, given I played this game for 106 minutes, which I think would have gotten me close to the part where I could get to the end of the game. Just the completionist in me wanted to just like see all of the game instead of just being like, okay, I think I'm good, I don't need to get to the end. Like, I just wanted to see the end. Mo?
Yeah, this is the odd situation where I'm almost 100% agreeing with you, Jacob. The whole end of the game is completely personal. I feel like I played the entire game with quotes. I know exactly what happened. I know my point of view of the story. And we kind of had this whole little discussion of like, is it her? Is it Eve? Is it Hannah? Is it one person? Is it 2 people? My ending is the way I kind of understood it and how I put those like little pieces together. Jacob's, yours might not be exactly like that, but that's still an ending. And Mike, same thing for you. You finished the game. That your ending is your ending. There's no specific thing saying, hey, the guy was murdered, it was just Hannah, or it was just Eve, or it was 2 people, one of them ran away. There's no definitive answer, and that's the whole point. You make your ending, you make your story, and then it becomes her story too.
Oh.
Way to tie it up. That was almost like your final, what do they call that in court? Your not cross-examination? Closing arguments. Thank you.
I think he still dropped, without going too far back into our debate past, Mo. I think he dropped the argument about whether there, case number one, was there, is there any reason to believe they weren't in Glasgow, that there isn't a record? Because I think the very simple response to that, Mo, is that clearly, if that was the case, they would have called and arrested her if that wasn't true.
You're almost going back now.
No. I'm saying if they
you're helping him out.
No, I'm not. If they called up Glasgow and said, "Oh, there's actually no record of you being admitted to this hospital," then they would have arrested her immediately. They wouldn't have had to go through more. They would have been able to, piece together the rest. But very clearly, they continue to ask her questions. And at one point, she just decides to talk about Eve, which is clearly a mistake. But it seems like talking about Eve was a clear way to get this off her back and throw the sister that she once tried to kill under the bus.
Okay, I don't want to seem like I am deviating, but I think it's going to be a little fun too. I'll bring that up in a bit, Mike. What if what we're watching is the video sequence and let's say, for example, I'm going to create a completely random situation. I didn't get this from anywhere. What if you're actually a therapist who's been assigned her case after she's been in prison, and you're watching the recordings?
Occam's razor, simplest answer. Least assumptions. Let's not create a narrative here that we don't have to. We're told. Did you read the README documents on the desktop?
The README and the super README.
Yes, and the really README, please.
Yeah. There's two documents. One had README, the other one had super README for those who haven't played the game.
I don't think we have any reason to believe that you're suddenly a therapist who's tasked with understanding this patient through seeing their previous interrogations.
Yeah.
I think the simplest answer is to take it on face value, that you're a member of this police department looking through a cold case or a colder case.
Whoa, Occam's razor much? What are we talking about? You're assuming you're a cold case, but they're not a cold case.
One of the things that I think needs to be brought up is that clearly all of these VHS tapes were recorded in 94 and were transferred over onto computers in 99, which means there's clearly a sizable gap between when these interrogations happened and when you're suddenly investigating it. And it also brings up the question as to why is it being studied now after the year 2000? Because it said in the year 2000 there was the Y2K fiasco and not everything is there. So clearly there's some time that's been passed since 94. It doesn't seem like a hot case to me, Mo. I don't know about you. I don't think I'm making those assumptions. It seems pretty clear cut.
Assumptions are assumptions. There's no clear cut.
You know what they say about
this.
assumptions?
No, I don't.
They make an ass out of Mo.
And that, Your Honor, I want to hold him in contempt of court, put him in jail. No, but anyways, back to the game. Yeah, no, back to the game itself. It's like maybe a part of it is also like me living. And I don't want to live. So it's a game. It's not a real world. But I don't want to be able to live in a world where someone can murder someone and say, "Hey, it was my imaginary friend," and get away with it, and that be okay. That's kind of like the bottom line of what's going on here.
I think you're the only one living in that world, Mo.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you guys actually think there was a second person after like seeing all the separate pieces?
Yes. Yep. I lean towards
the story made more sense when I understood it to be two people instead of one.
Oh, okay.
I think what one of the cool things about this game is, if you look in the subreddits and some of the other articles that have been written after the fact, is I think that and not to kind of be the centrist between the two of you, but I think the community is not definitely saying that there are two people. Like, there are still people that have that thread of like, are there actually two people, or is it actually just, one person?
Absolutely.
I don't think we can definitively say with the evidence that we've been given that there are two people or that there is one person.
Absolutely. I completely
100%.
agree that you cannot
100%.
definitively say,
100%.
but I will say that the arguments seem to sway, at least for me personally, much closer to it being two people than one.
Hannah and or Eve are guilty as heck. Like, let's just leave it at that. Like,
as all heck.
As so heckful.
So heckful.
But like, I don't know which argument I fall on the side of, because I think when we find out how the murder happened, and it was, I think, if I'm understanding correctly, Eve fell in love or saw Simon in a bar, and Simon kind of understood what was happening. He's like, wait, you
Yes.
look like my wife, but you're not my wife because you're singing and you're wearing a wig and you have a tattoo.
You're here.
But you're here, and what? And then he gets seduced by
Yes.
Eve, and it's the only man that they aren't allowed to share.
Yes.
And so I think Hannah gets
Unlike
upset.
Carl.
Unlike Carl's a jerk.
Yep.
Let's just leave it at that.
Yep.
But Hannah isn't okay with that, and I think that's when Hannah snaps and says and sides with Eve and says nah, Simon's a dirtbag. We gonna get him.
And also the whole thing, he made me a very special, unique present of this mirror. Mm-hmm. And ends up giving another one to the other sister. Mm-hmm. It's like, I guess we're not unique. I guess we're not individual.
Which, just to go back on that,
Slippity slip. I guess my mirror cracked, and it just happened to also slice open your throat.
Yeah, and I guess to wrap it all up, Hannah gets this mirror. It breaks. We don't exactly know how it breaks. Is someone
It breaks
pushed?
in a fight, right?
It breaks in a. Okay, there you go. See, you're filling it in for me. It breaks in a fight. Big piece of glass. Hannah gets the glass in her hand, and she flails about, and she slashes Simon's throat, and he bleeds everywhere. And the way the scene was constructed is that Hannah, who was dressed as Eve, are you still following? Mm-hmm. Is sitting in front of the body. Simon's neck is slit. She's sitting behind the body. The neck is slit, and Eve comes at the house and says, "Oh my gosh, what have you done?" And they start to say, how are we going to fix this? Because sisterly love, sister, what was the expression? It's, the expression is sisters before misters.
There you go.
So let's figure this out. Mo?
Yeah, so it's I think we've hit it earlier on before too. That's the really cool part about the game is there's no definitive either way. You can't definitively say one or the other. I think the one big argument for that is two people, your guys' situation, is the fact that there is a story that goes along that could make sense if there was two people. Now, the argument against it as well, that's kind of pretty heavy, is the fact that all this information is coming from one person that's having discrepancies throughout the story and kind of gives the average person the hint that, hey, maybe something isn't right there. But at the same time, you're right. It doesn't definitively say maybe there weren't two people. We can't dismiss the fact that maybe she is telling the truth. Maybe there is the two people. There's no way to see any other thing. You'd have to get other evidence. And like Mike said, we can't make assumptions that one thing or the other. That's the cool thing. It's not a direct answer to anything. It's kind of hey, figure it out, then talk to your friends about it and kind of banter until one of them kind of steps back and says, okay, I get it. It's maybe one way or the other.
How does the game end? I think it's a good point to bring this up. How does the game end?
How does the story end, or how does the game end? Because I think the game has no clear defined ending.
Yeah.
But the story ends in the very last interview with Eve/Hannah. I'm not quite sure who is saying it. That says, these are all stories. Everything I've told you is just a story. And I want my lawyer. And you won't be able to prove anything. And essentially just wipes her hands in front of them and smiles.
Mm-hmm. Like a Cheshire cat.
Like a Cheshire cat.
Yeah, that. I think that was a cool. It's the most satisfying, least satisfying ending I've ever seen in a game.
Absolutely, Mo. I couldn't agree more.
Because it leaves you hanging, but you're like, okay, I'm cool being in this whirlwind. Because at the end of the day, it almost implies hey, she's being charged. They have evidence to prove one way, but she's kind of played it in a way that maybe she might have even created this whole situation where there might be two people. Maybe she's creating this whole insanity thing herself and kind of making it seem hey, maybe I might be two people. So if you were going to prosecute it, the prosecution could go your way, guys, and say, hey, there was two people. My client isn't all up there. She's going to go free. Or maybe they have proof that proves otherwise. It's a little tricky. There's no way to definitively say without, what's the term for putting someone in jail without unreasonable...
Beyond a reasonable doubt?
Yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt that there was a second person. I mean, you could provide proof. You could do the search at the hospital. The police could provide more data. We don't have that when we play this game. But at this point, if we're going based off the video recordings, based off of just this text alone and not doing any background it's tough to say what way or another. We need more info. And the game pleasantly does not give it to you and says, haha, bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. I think 2 points I want to bring up before we wrap up. The first is that there technically is an end.
Okay.
I don't think any of us hit it because both Mo and I deleted our save data and we didn't get to it. And Mike, I just don't think you played long enough. But if you play long enough, and I think what I mean by long enough is not time, it's by accessing a certain amount of records, and I don't know if there's like a number, but if you go, there's like a program you can look at to see like all the records you've looked at.
Oh, the database search thing.
The database, yeah. So it says
Cool.
like, hey, there's one record missing. This is the last one that you looked at, and here are all the ones you've looked at.
Right.
At a certain point, there's a program that opens called Chit Chat, right in the top left corner of your screen, and it's, I believe, another journalist that's chatting with you or someone that's chatting with you, and there's speculation online about like, are you related to this character? Like,
Ooh.
yeah, like it goes.
That explains a lot about the Freedom of Information Act.
Because I just Googled it, and I thought the Freedom of Information Act was like in the 2000s. It wasn't. It was in the 80s. So like we don't exactly know when this happened, but there's speculation on who the character is that chats with you. But the character goes, "Do you think that you've gotten enough out of this?" And then all you have to say is "Yep, I think I'm good." You say yes, and then I think you say yes again, and then the credits roll.
Wow.
So again, it's a very personal, and it doesn't add that much more, but it's just being like, "Hey, are you good? Are you good? You sure? Okay, here are the credits." You're
Very
done.
cool. I like that it creates a world, leaves a lot of questions, and doesn't quite wrap them up for you.
And just as a final point, did either of you watch Evil Genius on Netflix?
I don't think so.
It's a show about Marjorie Deal, and she is the mastermind behind a bombing/robbery. It's an interesting series on Netflix. It's 4 parts, documentary, whatever. But a lot of her story reminded me of Evil Genius in that she is someone who's very intelligent, who puts the blame on others, who has seduced other men and then killed, like a little different, but she's seduced other men and killed them. So like, I'm not leaning more towards Mo's argument, but I'm saying like there are parallels here. So when I came into this podcast, I'm like, there are 2 people, but now
I got 2 people.
But now I'm not so sure. It's for all of you to find out.
Very cool.
Final thoughts, gentlemen, about this game. Did you like it? Did you not like it?
Extremely worth the time and money that I spent on it. Highly recommended.
I just want to throw one fun fact before I give it. Did you know that the actress, the one who's in the game itself, the single person, she was actually the musician in a previously canceled game with the developer called Legacy of Kain: Dead Son. It was canceled. Yeah, it was canceled, and then he liked the way she acted and the way she kind of voiced things. So he's like, "Hey, do you want to be the actress for my new game I'm making?"
Very cool. All the leaks around that were very cool.
Yeah. So
Sam's been on 2 canceled titles actually, but that one looked very cool.
Poor dude.
That Legacy Kain game had 2 subtitles. Anyway, I would love to talk to Sam about this game because like it's so cool. It's so unique. And like you've both said, like it is so worth the price of admission. And like if you're looking for a way this summer to get out of the hot sun and spend an afternoon, nestled next to your computer, I cannot recommend this game enough. Like it is such a cool afternoon time sink.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm same way with you guys. I thoroughly enjoyed it, even though 100% after the game not crashed, but I deleted all my saves. I was on the camp of I'm gonna go off. I'm going to completely go nuts about this game and say this is the worst game ever. But having time afterwards, thinking about it, seeing, putting the pieces together, going back into the story, it's really neat. It deserves all the awards it got. Really cool concept. Never played anything like it. The best part too, though, is just being able to talk to you guys about it and kind of going through piece by piece. I definitely see the other side. I still think my side's right, but at the same time, it's fun. It was really cool. Just seeing, holy, yeah, I can kind of see that other way, but I can see the other way, and definitely other people are going to do it. You know what? I'm actually not to shamelessly plug, but our Discord server should be pretty wild after this release. I think we'll have some nice chats on there. on it. So if you're not following us, go to leftbehindgame.club, hit the Discord button, and follow us and join our Discord server so we can kind of get chatting and talk about Her Story and other games that are coming along.
One of our great contributors, Hack'em, he was the one that actually suggested that we use a pen and paper, and I also use a pen and paper like you, Mike, and I totally recommend.
Great suggestion.
Awesome suggestion.
There's a lot of really cool people offering a lot of really cool things in our Discord. Not only do they have great suggestions for games to play, but they also find some really killer deals. I know that it's been hurting my wallet a bit because they continue to pummel me with fantastic bargains that it's just so hard to say no to, especially after the Steam Summer Sale.
And Mike, if people wanted to review this podcast and say, we like your discussion about video games, where could they do that?
Well, they can go to pretty much any platform that they listen to their podcast on, but we would highly recommend going to iTunes, loading up the Left Behind Game Club podcast.
And what star rating would you give it?
I think a 5 is pretty fair for a quality piece of content like this. But if you disagree, you can send your thoughts to us at questions@leftbehindgame.club, where we will have a black hole of email that Mo continuously checks and writes very personal responses to. So if you agree with Mo, if you disagree with Mo, if you want Mo to hear your thoughts, that's a very good way to get in touch with them. Mo, what are the other ways that people can get in touch with you?
Well, we're available everywhere, guys. We have our Instagram channel, so that's at Left Behind Game Club. We also have a Twitter account as well. It's at Left Behind Club, I believe, where you can kind of see what's going on. We post some contests. We post what's going on, some pictures about us recording, and we kind of have a lot of fun all in between. So give us a shout, guys, and let's see you in the Discord.
Jacob, where can the people find you at?
If they would like to find me on the internet, they can do so at Jacob McCourt, primarily on Twitter, but I'm on every major social media platform as well.
Mo, where can the people find you at?
You can find me at Murtadi, and if you guys want to see us even more, we're also available on our website. That's leftbehindgame.club.
And you can find me on almost all social places online at RUFFOLOM. Or the website michaelruffolo.com. And that, my friends, is one less game left behind.